So you have a small account. Maybe it's $10,000, maybe $50,000. Maybe you saved for months to put that money in the market, and everyone around you is telling you, what can you even do with such a small amount? A small account won't get you anywhere. First, bring big capital, then trade. And here you are confused, frustrated, wondering if you even have a chance. I am here to tell you something today that most people in the trading world will never say out loud. A small account is not your weakness, it might actually be your biggest advantage. And Mark Douglas, one of the greatest trading psychologists who ever lived, he knew exactly why. Stay with me, because what I am about to share will completely change how you look at your account size. Mark Douglas spent decades studying traders, successful ones, failing ones, brilliant people who lost everything, average people who quietly built wealth. And one pattern kept showing up over and over again. The traders who blew up were not the ones with small accounts. They were the ones who traded their account size wrong. It did not matter if they had $10,000 or $10 million. The mistake was always the same: too much risk, too much emotion, too little patience. Today, I am going to give you Mark Douglas's framework for trading a small account the right way, not just to survive, but to actually grow. Let me destroy the biggest lie first. Most traders with small accounts think like this: I need to make big returns fast, because my account is too small to make real money otherwise. So they risk 20%, 30%, sometimes 50% of their account on a single trade. They overtrade, they take every setup, they gamble because they feel like they have no choice. And then they blow up and they say, see, small account doesn't work. But that is not what happened. What happened is they tried to solve a math problem with emotion. Mark Douglas said something very clear. He said, your goal in the beginning is not to make money. Read that again. Your goal in the beginning is not to make money. Your goal is to survive. Your goal is to stay in the game long enough to actually learn. Because here is the truth about trading: it is a skill, and skills take time to develop. A surgeon cannot become better at surgery if they keep losing patients on the table. They need repetition. They need practice. They need time. And you can only get time if your account is still alive. A small account that survives 6 months is worth 10 times more than a big account that blows up in 2 weeks. Now, let me tell you what Mark Douglas actually said about risk. He talked about something called the psychological risk threshold. In simple words, every trader has a number, a loss amount that once crossed triggers fear, panic, and irrational decisions. For some traders, that number is $500. For others, it is $5,000. For others, it is $50,000. The number is different for everyone, but the reaction is always the same. Once you cross that threshold, your brain stops thinking like a trader and starts thinking like a person trying to survive. You move your stop loss. You hold losing trades, hoping they come back. You cut winning trades early because the profit feels fragile. This is not a strategy problem. This is a threshold problem. And the most powerful thing about a small account, your threshold is much easier to respect. When you are risking $200 per trade, you can breathe, you can think clearly, you can follow your rules. When you are risking $20,000 per trade, even if your account can technically afford it, your mind cannot afford it. Mark Douglas was very specific about this. He said, trade at a size where the outcome of any single trade does not matter. Not matters a little, does not matter. That is the zone where good trading happens. That is the zone where your edge can actually express itself. Now let me tell you something. that nobody talks about. A small account traded correctly gives you something that a big account cannot give you easily: freedom. Freedom from the constant anxiety. Freedom from obsessively watching every single candle. Freedom from the fear of ruin. When you risk $200 on a trade, you can place it and walk away. You can let it work. You can take a loss without feeling destroyed. And that freedom, that emotional neutrality, is exactly the state where great trading happens. Think about it. When you are calm, following rules is easy. You trust your system. You execute without hesitation. Your entry is clean. Your exit is clean. But when you are afraid, following rules becomes almost impossible because fear overrides logic. That is how the brain is wired. A small account, risked correctly, keeps you in the calm zone. It keeps fear out of your decisions. And calm execution repeated consistently is the only thing that builds a trading account. Not big bets, not lucky trades, calm, consistent execution. Now let me give you the exact framework. 3 rules, simple, non-negotiable. Rule number 1, risk 1% or less per trade. If your account is $50,000, your maximum risk per trade is $500. That is it. I know what you are thinking: $500, that is nothing. I cannot grow like this. That thought right there is the thought that destroys small accounts. Mark Douglas would tell you, the goal is not to make money from this trade. The goal is to execute correctly. The goal is to build the habit. When you risk 1%, you can take 10 losses in a row and still have 90% of your account. You can survive, you can learn, you can improve. When you risk 10% per trade, 10 losses in a row, and you are finished, no second chance, no recovery. Survival is the foundation of everything. Rule number 2, master one setup, only one. This is where most small account traders go wrong. They watch 10 different YouTubers, they collect 10 different strategies, and they use all of them at the same time. Result: confusion, hesitation, losses. Mark Douglas was very clear: consistency comes from repetition, not variety. Pick one setup. Maybe it is a breakout. Maybe it is a moving average crossover. Maybe it is price action at a key level. It does not matter which one. What matters is that you trade it 100 times, 200 times, 500 times, until your hands move before your brain finishes thinking. That is mastery, and mastery is the only thing that produces consistent results. Rule number 3, measure success by process, not profit. This is the most important rule and the hardest one to follow. After every trade, do not ask, did I make money? Ask, did I follow my rules? Did I execute my setup correctly? Did I manage my risk the way I was supposed to? If yes, it was a successful trade, even if it lost money. Because in the long run, good execution leads to good results. Not on every trade, not every week, but over time, over hundreds of trades, a well-executed process always wins. Mark Douglas called this thinking in probabilities. Your edge does not work on one trade, it works over a series of trades. So stop judging each trade by its result. Start judging each trade by your execution. That shift in thinking, that single shift, will change your trading more than any strategy ever could. Let me leave you with this. Mark Douglas spent his entire career watching traders destroy themselves, not because they lacked knowledge, but because they could not get out of their own way. They traded too big. They felt too much. They needed each trade to matter. And that need, that emotional attachment, killed every edge they had. A small account is not a handicap. A small account managed with discipline is a laboratory. It is where you learn to execute without fear. It is where you build the habits that last a lifetime. It is where you prove to yourself that you can follow a process when it matters. And once you can do that, once you have that discipline, locked in, the account size will take care of itself. Because the skill you build on $50,000 works exactly the same on $50 million. The market does not change, the edge does not change, only the numbers change. So stop waiting for a bigger account to start trading seriously. Start now, start small, start right. Trade small enough to stay calm. Risk little enough to think clearly, execute consistently enough to build something real. That is Mark Douglas's way, and it is the only way that actually works. If this video gave you clarity, if something clicked for you today, then smash that like button right now. Subscribe if you are serious about your trading journey, because we are just getting started. And drop a comment below. What is your current account size, and what is your biggest challenge right now? I read every single comment. Everyone, see you in the next video.